let's bring up our Interoperability Workgroup, Chris Rand and Catherine.
No, one's good.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Home stretch, everybody. Now, I disagreed with him because I thought everyone was great today, but Sam did say he was saving the best for last, so glad you're all sticking around with us here. But we are the cross-platform interoperability group. So
Everyone.
this is Catherine. I'm Chris. You've already seen me once here today, but we're very excited about what we've been doing in the group. We've got some great work that's been going on, and we want to share a little bit of that with you today, but we're also going to mix it up a little bit and talk about some of the directions that we can go forward with the group. So what we've got on the agenda for today is we're going to talk a little bit about what the mission is for cross-platform interoperability, just to remind everyone what that looks like and how that's potentially evolving a little bit. And specifically speaking about like where are we going to go next with the interoperability group. So we've given you a recap on where we've come from. Catherine and I are going to have a conversation about the UPI interoperability and Canada, because Catherine hails from the Great North there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to have an excellent panel on offer management. So we've got three great panelists that are going to help us out talk a little bit about that. I definitely in no way stole that idea from Clarity in February. So, all right. So our mission in the cross-platform interoperability workgroup, we originally got chartered with a very specific use case where we were working with transaction management platforms to achieve interoperability there. And we did sort of the normal process that Rob just outlined with the data dictionary. We went and got metadata. We brought in people from those different vendors, asked for use cases, tried to figure out like what is important to pass back and forth. And after a couple years of work, we're really excited that we submitted and made a few changes and eventually got approved by Data Dictionary some transaction management resources to be included in an upcoming version of the Data Dictionary. So we are excited about the work we've done there, but our last two meetings in particular, we've had a lot of discussion about where we go next. And as you can see with the mission itself, it does talk about bringing together disparate systems. So it doesn't specifically say just transaction management, but we have looked up and down the transaction lifecycle. Quick plug for tomorrow, one of the groups that Catherine's going to be leading, I'm going to be supporting, is a roundtable on industry map and how we all connect together. And I don't think I actually told you that I wanted you to lead that, so. But she's been working on that for a while anyway, so she's going to be great at it, and I'm going to help with it as well. But the idea of looking at the entire transaction holistically and where all this data flows from one system to another. So obviously transaction to transaction management platform is important, but what about showing systems, offer management, CRMs, MLSs, so all of those things there. Which leads into some of the items we've been talking about as a work group and what we want to do next. We've had a fair amount of conversation of looking at existing resources. So one of the things that we decided when we started this interoperability work group was that we didn't want to create something new unless we had to. So we really wanted to take a look at what already existed in existing resources with the RESO data dictionary and say, could we just drive more adoption there? A great example of that is with transaction management, we wanted to add some different user types. And originally we had looked at the member resource and then pulled away from that a little bit because that was more MLS specific. But we ended up adding 16 different values to the contacts resource to add a little bit more specificity to that. So the idea is let's see what we've got and how can we get a little bit more value there with different parties so we can get even more adoption. So contacts was something that we had started with, but we've also started talking a little bit about prospecting and saved searches and how that could potentially help more interoperability between MLSs and CRMs, as an example, or vice versa. We had a conversation about CRM to CRM, and we don't think that there's a lot to do there based on the feedback we got, but we do feel like there's a lot of potential in the MLS to CRM conversation there. And again, these are resources that already exist. It's just making sure that there's enough in there to make them useful that people want to adopt them and really use them at scale. So we're continuing to identify those connecting points between all these systems to identify some of the problems that are out there. We obviously have a fair mix of both business and technical people that attend our work group, which is nice. So we can talk about what's going on in the actual marketplace, and then how can we solve that technically, and how can we interact with some of the other work groups out there. And then some of the other discussion we had, which follows a little bit on the payloads piece that Rob was just talking about, is we have started talking a little bit more about the idea of Json payloads. And is that something that is a potential method of transport of use for what we're doing with some of these different interoperability pieces? It's the idea of making it a little bit easier to say, what are we going to send back and forth between these systems? So it's been good discussions that we've been having as we start to think about where we want to go next. We're not leaving transaction management. There are other areas there that we want to continue to work on. And we want to get some more proof of concepts and prototypes going so we can actually see some of that standard being used more often. But we also are looking at what else can we do with interoperability, because obviously it's a much bigger world outside of just transaction management. So that's some of the things that we're really excited about there that we're continuing to work on. But then we've got two other things that have come up a lot. And this is where I'm going to ask Catherine to get a little bit more involved here, because we've had a fair amount of discussion when it comes to interoperability around the various identifiers at RESO, the UPI, the organizational identifier, the ULI, and how important that is to true interoperability between these systems. To be able to track a property as it goes from one platform to another, to be able to track an agent from one platform to another. So in talking about this, we had some discussion around Canada and the UPI up there, and Catherine has a product, if you don't know, her day job is she's the CEO and founder of .love. So she's got a great product that works with a lot of users up in that marketplace, and we want to have a little bit of discussion about that today. So you can have more of a real life scenario of how some of these things that are ostensibly being done by other groups are being promoted and pushed and used in interoperability. So, Catherine, let's get started with it. Why don't you first tell us just a little bit about you and how you got involved in RESO, and because I know that Catherine's a very passionate person about the RESO mission and how it's helped her and her company, and I think that's great to share with everyone. So, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Well, actually, thank you to all of you being here. It's just so exciting. The fact that we all showed up already makes the industry better, right? Because standards only exist and matter if we all show up and participate and we all agree. Otherwise, it's not a standard. And I remember when we were starting our company, we were so excited to discover there was a data dictionary, right? So we wanted to actually start the innovation of our product using the data dictionary. And I remember I had seen Rebecca Jensen, our chair, at a conference talking about blockchain before it was cool to be talking about blockchain and NFTs as it affected real estate. And so I spoke to her after, and she mentioned Chris and RESO in the work groups. So I went up to Chris and talked to him, and then I started participating at RESO. And I would say it's just such a win-win to participate in the work groups. I attend as many of them as I can, and I love that I'm part of interoperability because the unique property identifier, it's key to interoperability. We all live somewhere. We all live in a property. If 5 other people said your address to you, it wouldn't be the same 5 different times. But we can't explain to customers, why we can't tell that address or these 2 listings are the same listing. Earlier when we had Olga and Joel up here, you really started to get a sense of some of the issues we're having. So before we go into that, realestate.love or .love is a client love magnet for agents. Practically, it's a fast, efficient home finder that basically comes in the form of a single individual agent website with a mobile application that clients or agents gift their clients and then work together intimately. So we are always asking, what would love do? And then that drives our product. And it's across Canada and hopefully will be in the United States. And why not globally? So it's all the listings through your agent with support of brokerages and organized real estate as being key, which is also why we like to participate at RESO.
So what's always nice about all these groups is obviously we're all volunteers, but we're also all customers of these things at the same time, right? Like we're all looking to solve our own problems in the same way. And, I think that's a great description of kind of where your product sits in sort of that transaction lifecycle and who it connects with. But talk to us a little bit, go into a little bit more detail. You started, but what's some of the biggest issues that you have right now in dealing with property and agent data in the market that you service? So.
Yes, actually, well, execution and the North Star being data consumers, when Sam spoke about that this morning, it was just music to our ears, right? Basically, if we don't have data consumers who are the vendors that are serving MLSs and agents on the ground, innovating and able to make products, it's a really poor experience for agents. So just imagine this. You're in Ontario, you're an agent, you're running along showing your clients listings, and all of a sudden, 53% of the listings in your own farm area you might not see because they're part of a neighboring MLS. And then you have this experience, I understand, in other parts of the United States as well. So where you're bordering MLSs, there can be listings that you don't see because you're not part of that MLS. Or like Jay Pepper Mertens was talking about, you have to actually join each MLS, and then each listing comes out in duplicate and triplicate. So there are all these challenges that are happening. And then depending on how the information is aggregated without a unique property identifier, it's actually hard to tell when a listing comes out in terms of sales history aggregation if it's actually part of that property. It should be part of the sales history. And some of the MLSs that we work with, the address is a string. So actually, you can have an agent input Lakeshore Boulevard West or W, or just Lakeshore Boulevard, and then those two listings, even if it was terminated and comes back out again, isn't aggregated on the same property. So it's really quite a challenge, and the unique property identifier, and also for us, knowing the licensee, the unique licensee identifier and organization identifier are equally important, because we're always talking about properties, but we don't have a way to be sure we are talking about an exact property. When agents are part of multiple MLSs, we can't be sure that's the exact agent that we're talking about when we're sharing with other systems. And in a multiple MLS system where we're working with 48 different MLSs in Canada, we need an organization identifier as well.
So with that UPI, you talked a little bit about you being a data consumer, what that's going to potentially do for you to help understand when you have three of the same property coming in. But talk a little bit more about your process that you have to do now to handle that, and how the UPI could potentially change that for you and your tech team. So.
Sure. Here's a great example. So there was a listing out yesterday that was listed at $799, but for 5 hours, the same property was also listed at $950,000. So it has a huge price difference that's listed at the same moment. So we can't synthesize what we as humans can look at and obviously see that those are two of the same listing on the same property. That's not happening programmatically. And part of the reason we can't do it is because it's actually different information that we can't make that assumption. If it can't happen programmatically, there are just far too many listings for that to actually be possible. But we have people in the room. Hopefully they're in here. If not, we're going to catch them at the reception. But Ontario's in a unique position where actually we've got some of the major MLSs in Ontario working with land registry and also the municipal tax people. So now there's this opportunity. We can't synthesize the data because we can't be sure. There's no other information we're getting than the MLS data. But the minute the MLS can attach a unique property identifier to a listing, all of a sudden we can remove duplicates and triplicates. We can make sure sales history matches. We have these opportunities for a better consumer experience to provide agents on the ground.
Excellent. So if you had your wish, like, what would you like to see happen with the UPI in your markets in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, back to execution. So if we have the UPI and we have these three groups in Ontario working together, how come we don't have the UPI yet, right? And what can we do? So right away, we need to look at how the MLS can incorporate the unique property identifier in its feed for us. And we're here to work with them to help make that possible, so that can work. The MLS, some of the MLSs actually don't pass the lat and long. That would be really helpful if that came along. And I know sometimes there are contracts and costs, but when the agent actually moves the pin and identifies it, being able to just give us those coordinates would be helpful. Olga was pointing out earlier that there's, even when you're geolocating, efficiencies. Once you have a unique property identifier, all of a sudden you don't need to re-geolocate that because you know precisely where it is with the UPI. So there's tons of opportunity here to basically not only make what's currently happening, so the information on a property in aggregate for sales history and for just current available listings, but from the interoperability perspective, as soon as we can talk about a unique property identifier we can start to innovate past to CRMs and to offer management and showing platforms. We can say, we're talking about this property with this agent in this situation. It comes from that organization. And they were just more efficient and we're more certain with the data.
Yeah, I think the theme we've heard a lot today is there's a lot more collaboration going on in the industry. A lot of MLSs are working together, vendors are working together. And the more we start sharing some of those data sets, the better we need to be at being able to understand what's the unique information we're getting between those. So that's where, that's why the UPI and the ULI have been really fascinating discussion point, and the organizational ID has been fascinating discussion points for us in interoperability. Because when we think about whether it's the Json payload or adding fields of resource or thinking about like what is the payload we recommend for certain things back to data dictionary, it does come down to like that's going to be a big part of it all the time because it's going to help make that information useful and unique. So
yeah, and Chris, just as a final thing, I would say in terms of MLS relevancy, right? Our greatest technology is the MLS. Right? There's no other place that has that. It's pretty amazing. And so for MLSs to participate and be inspired to have these standards that we're lucky we have, when they feel that the data consumers they're passing down the information to can actually help them stay relevant and innovate, so they have this choice of systems to give their members have a better experience. And in the end, the consumer's having a great experience and everyone's much happier. And we're seeing a big shift toward this co-opetition and cooperation and interoperability, which is just key.
Which I do like about our group a lot is I do feel like we talk a lot about the consumer in many of our discussions. The consumer does pop up a lot because ultimately that's what these data issues really cause problems for, are those people who are searching or trying to work with the data that we put out for them. So I think it's an excellent thing we're working on, and thank you for pitching us on UPI and for your passion on that. But
thank you.
Any final words?
Yeah, well, you can hold on in a second here. We're going to have some other great stuff with interoperability and how these UPI, UOI, and ULI can help offer management and the next panel. So Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Catherine. So next up, and actually I'll take that from you if you want to. All right. So next up, if my panelists can join me, I have K-Rock, C-Roll, and Josh. Josh, we got to get you a better nickname. So
we'll put Josh in the middle of the carries.
J. Cole, we'll call him that. So all right, so we got one microphone. We have a third one.
Carrie. My very first panel, you guys. I'm a little nervous.
Don't worry, there's only like 10 people left in here with us, so.
Thank you all for staying.
And we know we're between you and the drinks, so we're going to be really quick.
Just so it's clear, the drinks aren't ready yet, so you have nowhere to go. We're keeping you entertained for the next 30 minutes until they're ready. So, all right. So, like I said, I totally stole this idea from Clarity. Offer management is something that's been around for a while, but it just feels like it's picking up a lot of steam over the last year or so. There was a great panel at Clarity where we had a few of these people on stage to talk about it, and I thought this is just so interesting. It feels like it's about to blow up, and we need to start having discussions now about what that means for all the people who are going to be involved, all the different stakeholders, and also because we're RESO and because it's interoperability, how can we talk about the choice and making sure that these systems could potentially work together in the future? So, very happy to have you all here. We've got the Carrie sandwich now with Josh in the middle there. So we've got Carrie, Josh, and Carrie. So everyone wave. Hi.
I'm Carrie today.
All right. So 3 Carries. Carrie cubed. Oh, I like this. We're way too punchy at this point. So we all need to go to the bar really quick. Well, yes. Let's start with you, Carrie, on this end. Carrie Ralston. Why offer management? And how do you guys approach it? So talk a little bit about that and give it the pitch. Thanks.
The pitch. Why offer management? So I'm with Showing Time, and we have heard quite a bit from our customers, the frustration of, did you get my offer? So I think MLS staff here, if you're an MLS staff person, you've probably had that complaint come up through the ranks. So we felt we could solve that. It's very similar to the way showings are booked. We felt it was a problem that we could solve, and so we went after that. We started developing Offer Manager a few years ago. There are some MLS customers here who have launched it already and are in the middle of launching that. So we feel that it is very complementary to booking showings, right? So all of the parties are involved. You have the buyer's agent, the seller, you have that listing agent. They're already using our platform to communicate around the showing, booking the showing, rescheduling showings. That communication is flowing back and forth. And what we heard from our user advisory group was essentially, did you get my showing or did you get my offer? And that buyer's agent rarely hearing back, right? So if you look at any social media platform right now and search offers, you will find frustrated agents. Buyer's agents submit offers, they don't hear back. Listing agents are trying to manage multiple offers, and it's a hard process for them to dig through 17 offers and get back to every single agent. So we felt the platform that we already have in place that's being used by our customers was a really good fit. We just needed to tweak it a little bit by adding things like a side-by-side comparison, and we're giving tools to the seller's agent that allow them to organize all their offers in one piece, one branded piece, either branded for the MLS or the brokerage or the agent. And so they're getting these tools to not only communicate back to the buyer's agents that, hey, I have your offer, this is the date and time we're going to present that offer. But we also have the tools that allow that seller's agent to really put together a nice presentation to show all the offers to their sellers. And so I think that's why we got into the business. And you're right, it has been out for a while, and we're just starting to see traction in the last 12, 16 months on the platform.
So quick follow-up before we move on to Josh. I know another shout out to Canada. It was interesting. It seems like you guys got a lot of feedback from Canada to actually get this started, right?
That's that Carrie, I do believe.
No.
Oh,
I can tell you all about the Canadians, but
right. So the province of Ontario, right?
Yeah.
They were the first runners of this, and
Yeah.
Carrie Rexon could probably talk a lot more to that than I can, being the Canadians. But you know, they put it together, the 801 form. It's required that if you put it together an offer, that you have to register it. So the seller's agent at that time needs to communicate to every single buyer how many offers they've received. And so the transparency there started with the province of Ontario, right? And we did get a lot of feedback asking folks, could you tack on some of this communication piece in the showing platform? And that's, yeah, Chris, you're right. That's how we got involved.
Great. So Josh, SkySlope, obviously very well known in transaction management space, but you guys are looking to make a splash with offer management.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about why.
I am Carrie from SkySlope. Yeah, offer management. I mean, right now it's really hard to purchase a home. I think we all know that. Competition is higher. Competition is very strict. The stakes are higher, and what that's created is really an underlying environment of unfair housing and discrimination. I think we all saw the recent NAR study where second to affordability, which is always going to be, I think, the biggest fear for buyers, is the second biggest fear was discrimination, unfortunately. And we think that it's coming from the top of the funnel. We think that it's offers is where we need to address this. And so for SkySlope, what we've seen is buyers are getting more and more discouraged. That they think the market and the system is against them, and the next generation of buyers could get so discouraged to where demand could plummet. We could see more people buying a house next to Snoop Dogg in the metaverse next generation. So we wanted to fix that with the real issues going on in real estate today, and we feel that it's the right technology at the top of the funnel with offers, with the right checks and balances to promote fair housing, to eliminate discrimination as much as we can, and give an equal opportunity to every buyer out there.
So I think it's fascinating. We've got now two different workflows. We've got showings connected to offers. We've got transactions connected to offers. We've got different reasons for getting into it. And now we're going to have Carrie from Open talk about coming from overseas from a completely different style of market and how offers is trying to translate from the great Australian land.
yeah, so I'm always the foreigner, right? I'm Carrie Roxum from Open, and Open has entered into the North American market in September, but we've been around for 6 years in the Australian and New Zealand markets. And we've been managing multiple different workflows within the way offer and acceptance works. There's an auctioning piece, but that's staying in Australia and New Zealand. And what we're really bringing forward is our offer and acceptance process. we're doing some things a little bit differently. So we talked about the equality, and that's definitely a piece of what we bring to the market as well around that equality and that big focus. Carrie talked about efficiency. Of course, we want that efficiency with the sellers and the sellers and the seller agents. So what we do is we actually have a dashboard that services both the seller and the seller's agent. So the seller's agent is managing all of that offer stuff within that dashboard, but the offers are coming in through the buyer. This is where we're doing things a little differently on the transparency piece. We know that the millennials are the biggest buying group now. We heard from Rent Spree today that showed us that really great graph. I'm thinking of stealing it. But we know that the millennials are the biggest buyer. And they expect transparency. They expect that the biggest purchase of their life, they're going to understand exactly what's going on in that transaction. So we allow the buyers to be part of our platform. So once that offer comes in, that buyer's agent is now a part of that. They get a dashboard that sees what's going on, where their offer's ranking, how many buyers they're up against, and the buyer sees that as well. So we have opportunity to link that consumer in, but build a different level of trust with the agents. So no longer is it, did I pay too much for that house? Or do you think I got enough for that house? Could I have gotten another offer? Everybody within the transaction will see the live update of what is happening within the offer management, and the seller has the opportunity to accept an offer at any point and whichever offer they feel they need to. So we are bringing a different element to it to bring this transparency, and when there's transparency, there's equality, and with this dashboard environment, we have the efficiency.
Excellent. So we're going to do this fantasy draft snake style. So Carrie, you get to go again. All right, so let's, we've got the pitches out of the way, and what I like about it is, like, obviously there's some similarities, but you also have very different product features. You're all coming in a little bit differently, so it's providing a lot of choice, already a lot of innovation in a very new space, relatively new. But let's talk a little bit into some of the more of the details. So how are you planning on integrating with your future customers? And that could be brokerages, could be MLSs, because I know all three of you are kind of going at both markets. So, yep.
Yeah, so integration. I mean, we all know this general integrations, right? SSO integration and from the MLS, those types of things. But we also have this customer side of things, as I spoke about, because buyers and sellers are involved. So being able to link into your client portals, your client mobile apps, being able, if you run a public portal, to link in and have those individuals who want to make an offer be connected to your actual buyer's agents within the system, right? So much of our lead gen doesn't actually focus on that, and it's an ability to have that connection as well.
Josh?
Yeah, I think that we're in a really good position to leverage about a dozen years in the industry, working with over 3,000 brokerages, over 350,000 current users, where we have a unique perspective at scale to how an integration should truly work for the agent. What I mean by that is meeting agents where they're currently working. In this market, vendors have to do that. It cannot be the other way around. Agents already have enough to do. The last thing we want for them to do as a vendor is have to go into a completely different area to complete the aspects of their transaction when they should be going to where they're already working. And in addition to that, what we like to do is cut out unnecessary tasks, unnecessary data entry. And speaking on offers, spending more time, empowering agents to spend more time with their clients to strategize and evaluate offers and really consult them and be a better fiduciary for them on the biggest purchase of their home. And this could be as simple as, like Carrie said, a single sign-on style integration with the MLS site or the brokerage site. Ideally, what we'll see as a standard with SkySlope offers is an integration with your listing data aggregation vendor, Matrix, Paragon, Flex, a one-way auto data fill to cut out unnecessary data entry for the agent, and then even more custom integrations, maybe like a custom SkySlope offers app that can be instilled right into your MLS hub or dashboard, very similar to what we're doing with Stellar MLS down in Florida. In addition to that, also to help both sides of the deal, especially auto-generating a offer submission link right in the listing itself on the MLS. And that's great for both parties. Buyers agents have a simple way to know where the offer needs to go. It's one easy click. They can submit the offer. On the seller side, they're not spending unnecessary time having to write out, submission instructions to the buyer's agent.
So Carrie, you mentioned that you're obviously attaching it to the showing workflow right now. and that was why you guys thought it made sense to have that tied together. So is that just part of the showing integration, or is there something a little extra for offers that you're planning on doing too?
There's something definitely different for offers. Our goal is really to focus on that consumer experience, right? We don't want to shift away from our normal workflow with our customers. Integration is going to be key. The way we will start is MLS integration, just like we have a showings button, a submit offer button. And it's interesting to hear some of the things that Carrie and Josh,
Carrie.
Carrie and Carrie second are mentioning, because listen, as these products start to evolve, we're all competitors up here, but certainly friends. What I hear you both saying is already on our roadmap or ready for prime time, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see the different feature set of these. I think they're going to morph quite similarly with dashboards, with single sign-on. When we launch an MLS, we want you to have a dedicated button to submit an offer. We want to get away from agents submitting offers by email. We all have noisy inboxes. I don't want to look for offers 17 times on one property that came in 10 days ago up to today, right? I want them to be systematically organized by listing, and I want my buyer to be able to see those eventually, and I also want to make sure that the seller has access to every single offer, right? The days of cherry picking offers that you should promote and present to your seller should be over. And we know that that's still happening. And what's really frustrating for agents is they just don't have an easy way to communicate around offers. They're all busy. It's no one's fault, right? They just need a tool to do that a little bit better. So MLS integration is key and primary for any account that we have. But then we're working on our next roadmap piece would be for Eforms integrations and transaction management integrations. Ideally, what we'd like to see is when you submit an offer, you grab it right from your Eforms provider. You're not downloading a purchase contract and reattaching it. It's simple integration. And then when you have an approved offer, that can easily and seamlessly be ported right on out to your transaction management system. So all of these really fun concepts are coming in the roadmap.
Excellent. Yeah, and I will second not only the email offers, but I'll throw in text message offers too as the bane of existence that need to disappear quickly. So can't tell you how many arbitrations happen over text message offers.
Yeah.
What? People negotiate by text? I think you're lying.
In some areas, napkins. So.
So, Carrie, that was actually a great segue into our next question. So, Josh, I'm actually going to turn this one to you, which is how do you handle interop with other systems now, such as transaction management, CRMs, e-signature, and what's on your roadmap for future partnerships and integrations?
Yeah, I mean, SkySlope has always operated as an agnostic platform, whether that's with our DTM products or our form products you guys are probably already familiar with. And so we've built the offer management system in kind of in the same vein, working very hard to keep it extremely flexible, right? We're always going to recommend our suite of products to improve the agent experience and give them the best experience possible. But of course, agents, want to use other forms providers. They want to use other e-signatures. So we've worked really hard to make the offer management piece very flexible, where if the agent wanted to fill out and sign their offer in another product besides SkySlope Forms, they could do that. They could upload that through our offer manager, have the same experience that they deserve. And then post that workflow, if they wanted to use another transaction management provider besides SkySlope, they'd be able to do that as well. So we want to keep things very flexible, for the agents, keep them working in the systems that they're comfortable with, and never force them into one area that they don't want to. As far as the roadmap goes, I'd say what we're trying to do is really build an open workflow, open ecosystem, call it, where data can be migrated, cross-platform to better standardize data, which is huge. Obviously, that's why we're all here. And to really cut down on redundancy and promote more transparency with data as well.
So, Carrie, as a new company in the country, who are you looking to work with?
Well, I think You notice how many times Josh used open. So it kind of makes sense that we're going to go with the open environment as well. So absolutely, I know we're standing between you and beer. We're standing between me and beer. So we are of the same mindset, right? We do not want to drive that agent and that broker away from the tools that they are using and that they have invested in. And we will be working through that API environment to be able to push and pull that data back and forth for whatever is needed. And that is the spirit of what we've developed in, and that is the direction that we're going in, because we recognize and understand there's a lot of choice and a lot of different solutions, and we want to be able to work with those.
All right, so enough with the softballs. So since we're in interoperability here, the question I have, and anyone can volunteer to go first on here, is what's the best way for the three of you as companies to approach interoperability between yourself, so we don't get a fragmented situation where all three of you have said this in one form or another, an agent has chosen a system and has to work in another system because those systems don't talk to each other. So,
There's a really simple answer to this.
simple answer? Okay. I love simple.
API. That's our simple answer. We're either in a central database, right, as Carrie mentioned today, or we're using APIs. So I think APIs really work here. There's nothing wrong with using that. We want to try to form, we want to reduce these one-offs that we have with multiple other vendors, multiple brokers, multiple agents. Anyone can sign up for probably any one of our products. This is not just an MLS product. Brokers can purchase it, which they have already, and a single agent or a team. So we want to be able to API with their back-end systems, just so it makes it easy. And I think API is I think that's the right answer for me at this time.
I'll say that, as providers, on the behalf of MLSs and their members, we have an onus to collaborate with each other, to standardize the data that we're collecting and passing back to our partners. And I think that that's really key to the future of real estate and interoperability, and I think the most logical path to interoperability as well.
Yeah, I think, there's this central hub that we have been hearing about, and you certainly have made a lot of progress with, and then that API environment as well. And ultimately, at the end of the day, our customers are going to push us to do this, right? Just like the millennials are going to push us for transparency and that data being out there, our customers are going to push us to be a little more friendly than maybe historically in the industry. And I know our goal at Open is to keep that agent central on both the buy and sell side. And so, to do that, we need to be listening to our customers and working with the people they work with.
So if I can recap that a little bit, I've just heard we've got 3 new volunteers for the Interoperability Workgroup, and that we're going to have a offer management resource that we recommend to Data Dictionary in the next few months. So, but in all seriousness, I do think that there is going to be a lot of commonality in, as you mentioned, Carrie, like starting with the API. If we have these endpoints that we feel is going to be common between you, I think that is going to be something that's going to make a lot of sense. And keep it so there's still plenty of competition, plenty of innovation. That's what we want. We don't want to have everything completely standardized, but I do really see a ton of opportunity in this field really quickly early on, and something that'll help rather than hinder any kind of innovation and growth. So to finish us up in these last couple minutes here, and we're going to have almost perfect timing for the bar to open up. You can either leave us with words of hope, or you can scare us a little bit. So, if organized real estate ignores offers, what's the biggest risk we realize?
Oh, I got it. Let me go first. Listen, that's happening now, Chris.
Yep.
It's absolutely happening now. When sellers are not presented with every single offer that comes in, that is a detriment. They are not seeing all of their options. The transparency is not there. Agents are frustrated with how to communicate with each other in an effective way. It's happening now. And if we don't fix it, it's going to get worse. And I really mean that. We've fixed MLS situations. Collectively, we've fixed showings throughout the countries. We need to focus on offers. And if we don't, the consumer is going to pay for it.
I'm going to scare you guys a little bit. I think if organized real estate ignores offers, it kind of goes back to what I was saying in Chris's first question. We're avoiding the underlying yet bubbling environment that's happening right now in real estate, especially with buyers, which is unfair housing and discrimination. We simply cannot turn a blind eye to that. On top of that, to scare you guys a little bit more, I think it's also ignoring the next generation of home buyers. Carrie on my left mentioned a lot about millennial buyers, and right now millennial buyers are scared. They feel like the market and the system, for that matter, is stacked against them, and the buyer confidence is at an all-time low. And if organized real estate and MLSs do not address that at the top of the funnel with offer management technology, I think the next generation of home buyers are not going to be home buyers. They're going to go elsewhere, or they're not going to buy. They're going to continue to rent, and I think we're going to see even bigger issues at that point.
So I'm going to leave us with some hope. I think we have an amazing opportunity to actually recreate the value proposition with the agents by bringing a new set of data that has not been captured and used in the marketplace for marketplace intelligence, but also to steer, to Josh's point, the environment of trust, the environment of advocacy. So, we have governments who are making blanket statements about stopping blind bidding and banning foreign buyers, and because of this conception that things are not being done above board. So this is an opportunity for us to be leaders and put tools in place to bring that data forward.
Excellent. So thank you very much to our panelists. Everyone say thank you for a great end to day one. Appreciate you guys joining me here. I'll just close that if you liked that type of conversation, we want to have more of those in our interoperability work group. We'd love you to join us. It's the second Tuesday of every month, 12 Pacific, 2 Central, 3 Eastern. But this is the kind of stuff we want to continue to work on and get into in the future months for interoperability. But otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Sam. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.